Hello everybody and welcome to Robin's TV Extra Time. We have a cracking show in store for you as we take a look back at Bristol City's 2-0 win at home against Watford. A brilliant game in the warm spring sunshine here at Ashton Gate, which fundamentally keeps City's playoff push alive. I'm Alex Wood, and joining me for this one we have not one but two former City players in the punditry hot seats. Please give a warm welcome to Chris Honor, Leroy Rossignol. Got the dress code, obviously.
Yeah, all sorted.
In sync. I'll have to do better next time.
Yeah,
but
you
didn't
get the memo.
I didn't get that memo. But look, what a game today. As I say, in the sunshine, it really felt like there was a buoyant atmosphere out there in the crowd. Chris, you were on commentary alongside Alex Duffel. Just think, looking back on that 90 minutes, that was a big 3 points, wasn't it, in the context of today's game?
I think everyone realised how important it was. It was a almost not a 6-pointer because that's Tuesday night, which we're going to go on to, but it just leads to the rest of the season being really important. This was the first leg of a really interesting and important week, and I thought there was plenty of nerves, but I think we overcame the nerves and we played some really good stuff first half. It was interesting second half, and again we'll go into all the detail shortly, but yeah, great 3 points.
Absolutely, yeah, huge 3 points. And Leroy, we'll take a look at some of the stats as well, but do give us your take, I guess, on the game, the occasion. It felt like everything just sort of came together just about for City at least today.
Yeah, and I said about moments, and City just in the moments they took their opportunities. I didn't think it was a game of big chances. Just reflecting on it afterwards, I'm thinking how much did both keepers really have to do? But in the moments where City had their opportunities, they took them. I didn't think Watford had a lot of opportunities until the end of the game. I know it got a little bit nervous, but Max O'Leary, I think, and what did he have to do? Maybe that save that he took from Bar in the first half, a few catches. He'd be delighted he'd have that week in, week out. He had no chance for the goal. So I think, yeah, for the most part, I think we couldn't have asked for any more from this City side. I think that they did a really good job, and it's all about the 3 points.
Yeah.
But now they're in the top six. It's a different pressure. It's about they're in control. Yeah. Where it's been chasing all season, and now they're there. They have to deal with that pressure because it is a really big pressure when people are looking at you and thinking.
I think the pressure is massive. Once actually being there, you're being shot at. When you're chasing, it's a little bit different.
Exactly. So let's see how they handle that. And I think they can.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. And of course, you mentioned Tuesday night. We will talk about that and what that means exactly. But let's take a look at some of the stats for today, because this score tells the story in some ways around the game. But yeah, Leroy, what jumps out to you just looking at some of these numbers?
The possession. Don't be concerned by that, because when City were in control, they were up to almost 70% possession. But then, towards the end of the first half, when they were lacking a little bit of energy, it was almost like a rest defence, and Watford were keeping the ball in front of them. And then for half an hour of the second half, Watford kept the ball. Lewis was on the ball, but he was on the ball in around his own half for most of the time. And I think it kind of lulls it into almost a false sense of security. I think, well, he's not hurting us. So, that's not a concern. The expected goals, yes, City did create the better quality chances, but they weren't great chances. The Crawley volley, people might think is an easy chance, but he doesn't. He executes it perfectly. Naki's gone through the legs of a defender. They're not high quality chances, but they took them. And then it shows that everywhere else it was a pretty tight game. Not too many corners. The game was played on the pitch. I know it sounds silly, but there weren't too many corners, not too many set pieces. It was a game that wasn't interrupted too often by the ball going off the pitch. But I just felt it was a fairly controlled City win, and Watford didn't deserve anything from the game.
Yeah, and just looking at those then Chris, as well, as Leroy says, Watford more possession, even actually more shots. But a lot of those were sort of safe catches. You didn't really feel like there was too much on them. You felt like City controlled this game, even if those stats don't necessarily bear it out.
Well, definitely first half. First 30 minutes, I thought City, after a bit of a shaky start, there was an interesting period when we saw a flying winger skin both full-backs on the left-hand side. But after that substitution, City settled into a pattern of play and they moved the ball well. They scored the 2 goals. And it was almost as if they were conserving a little bit of energy. The only problem is you want players to be relaxed, but you don't want them to collapse. I remember managers saying, you can relax, but don't collapse. And City were passive in their defensive work, and there was a wonder goal, and then City never do it easy. And we kind of clung on for the last 10 minutes. Well, it felt like that as a City fan. But in reality, as Leroy was just saying, if you look at the stats, apart from really one great catch by Max when he stretched, to full stretch to take a cross. There wasn't a lot for him to do. There was no shots. There was no danger. It was just my nerves making the best. Making me feel very nervous.
Absolutely. There was a lot of nervous energy in there, myself included. But let's take a look maybe at some of the chances, because Chris described them, pretty well in terms of that winger for Watford, Barr, who started the game so bright for them. An injury doubt coming into it, and as we see, doesn't last terribly long. But look, gives Campering a real run for his money there, doesn't he?
Well, Campering's one of the quickest players in the City side, and he just leaves him for days. He's a really good athlete, and you thought, we don't want him getting the ball, because he actually ran past Ross McCrory before that as well. Every time he got the ball, he made something happen. And then this, for me, was a turning point. This is before City got their goal. He's gone off. You see that he's so disappointed. And before the game, Tom Cleverly said, look, if we can get an hour out of him, how important he is to the side, and you could see it. Tom Ince came on, totally different sort of player.
Nice footballer, but not going to skin Cam Pring.
Exactly.
I mean, it's quite funny. I watched that again, and Cam Pring's actually sent him down the line. Go on, knock it past me. I'm quick, I'm strong, I've got good upper body strength. I'll put an arm across you, you're not going to beat me. All of a sudden he was gone.
Yeah.
And I was up in commentary and I went, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Because as a defender or a fullback, there's not a lot you can do about that.
Absolutely.
And when he went off, as Leroy said, it changed the game.
Yeah, it did. And of course, this may well have had a bearing on City's opener, which came on 24 minutes. Ross McCrory, an unlikely goal scorer in some ways, was back in the team today.
It may or may not, but I did want to put this to Chris, but it's about mindset. When you've got someone that quick, Ross McCrory ends up, 10 yards out, finishing that off, 12 yards out. But when you've got someone like Barr,
taking you the other way.
You're thinking, okay, you're just a little bit hesitant going forward. But he just gets forward, he hasn't got any real worry about, Tom Ince in that space in behind him, because he knows he can catch up with him. But with Barr there, you just kind of hold off, and he might have ended up on the edge of the box and not getting there to volley it.
Well, you also conserve a little bit of energy as well, because you don't know whether you're going to have a ragged afternoon chasing someone.
Yeah, exactly.
But on that occasion, he's probably thinking, I can get back, I can recover, I can make these runs back to Tom Ince. But the story could have been so different.
Exactly. It's a terrific finish as well. Not once does he look at the goal. He just concentrates on his technique.
Yeah, his head's down.
Head's down.
Position's right. I played left back a few times and I was a right-footed player. Oh, that would have been skewed a million miles. That would have gone out for a throw-in somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that got City up and running, didn't it? 24 minutes. Just 5 minutes later then, City double their advantage. And that's when I think you really felt some relief, the real roar in the crowd. But from one wing back to another, Mark Sykes, hugely instrumental in this goal here. Yeah,
look, when City have got on top and they've got momentum, in recent weeks, they've not only scored one, they scored two. Did it against Norwich. And Sykes, it's a wonderful bit of skill. This is all about confidence, and he's at the top of his game. Lets it go through his legs. I mean, they might have hesitated because they thought it went off. It didn't go off because the assistant referee didn't give it. And the finish from Naki is terrific, because we know that he's not going to dribble past anybody, but you give him a yard of space, that's too much. And as Pollock gives him a yard of space in front of him, and he means to do it, Naki. He knows where the goal is. And so many forwards use the going through the defender's legs as a really good way to score goals. And that was an excellent way to stick that in the back of the net from Naki.
Leroy, a question from me. I mean, you're an attacker, but if Naki Wells had hit that with his right foot when he first received the ball, the angle was reduced, but he's brought it onto his less familiar left foot, and he struck it well, kept his head down, found the gap between the legs. Perfect. Is that right? He's just focused, increasing the angle and trying to thread it into the bottom corner.
Well, Chris, to be fair, it's poor defending.
Well, you try to show him down the line, don't you?
To keep him down the line, because people say about one-on-ones, it's not actually one-on-ones. You've always got the goalkeeper. You're always 2v1 in that situation. And the goalkeeper, where would the goalkeeper want him to go? Onto his right foot. But he allows him to open up the angle. Now, it's difficult for the goalkeeper to make his position. And it's a really clever early finish. If he takes another touch, a lot of players, when they're confronted by a defender, think, I've got to shift the ball again.
Well, in Naki Wells, about 5 or 10 minutes later, he could have made it 3, couldn't he?
Well,
and he did have too many touches, didn't he? And that could have put the game to bed.
And maybe just a quick, I don't even know if we really saw it in the picture there, but there was a lot of debate, certainly among the fans, as to whether that ball had gone out. Do we care? I mean, from a City point of view, did you see it?
No. I didn't see it.
No, you didn't see it.
By the way, the closest man to it was the assistant referee, as close as you are to it, and he said no, it was in.
There was 8 players, including the manager, all running towards the linesman after the goal went in. It's too late. You've got to play to the whistle.
Absolutely. Well, look, another sort of characteristic quality of the first half, at least from a City point of view, was their pressing, Leroy, which you were sort of keen to highlight with some of the clips that we saw. Sort of City getting it really spot on, weren't they, with the press?
Yeah, and it was really important. And obviously, you cannot press all the time, but when they elected to press, it got into some real good attacking position. I was talking about in analysis, before the game. They're really good at it. And what it does, sometimes you've got to take your breathers. Now they're in the rest defence situation, but now you've got a trigger. Now you've got to get tight and look at them all, and it's really well orchestrated. Look, and the only way you can go is backwards. He hasn't even won the ball, but what that does for your back four is get him up the pitch. You saw the goalkeeper kicking it long, and then your big centre half comes and heads it, says thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
big difference from the Saturday before.
Yeah,
because I thought again we dropped too deep. We allowed too much space for the Burnley players. They picked us apart. They played between us. It looked far too easy. Obviously, they've worked on it during the week, and that was a great outcome.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of one of the obvious changes to that was obviously Joe Williams coming back into the team alongside Jason Knight, Max Bird allowed to advance slightly higher up. Did that possibly be a factor in some of this?
I do. I know when people talk about City playing with the double 10, they always think about City in possession, getting in a little pocket of space. It's it's more about the pressing. Yeah, and I said about the mobility of Earthy and Bird in those areas. Where they can not only press forward but also press back. What you saw the Burnley side do brilliantly last week was their midfield, their front players and midfield players, when it went behind them, pressing back towards the ball. So I'm a centre forward coming off, and not having got someone tight behind me, someone's coming from that position as well. Yeah. And Max Bird and Earthy do that absolutely brilliant. They run back towards the ball, and it allows you to win possession of the ball. And I thought that was what is the difference, the big difference for City out of possession with Bird and Earthy in those positions.
And also, you don't get centre forwards now scoring 30 goals, 22 goals, 24 goals a season because they're having to work so hard as the first line of defence. And there's a lot expected of forward players in the defensive role, and Naki Wells does it so well. Yeah, amazing.
I always say to Chris, to young forwards, do you work hard work, do it early. By the way, if you do it early, you'll get a 10-yard ball. If you don't, if you're just stood watching the ball, you're going to get a 50-yard ball, because then the ball's going to go into an area, it's going to be a longer ball. If you do your work early, someone 50 yards behind you is going to win the ball, and then you're in a position to go and score your goals.
Absolutely. Well, that was the first half in many ways. And let's take a look, shall we, at the sort of theme, the story of the second. Interesting parallel, really, with the substitute from a Watford point of view having a bearing on the game, because it was a youngster, Mohamed Doumbia, coming on here alongside one of their other danger men. But it was the youngster, actually, that was able to have an impact on the game with his goal.
I saw him earlier in the season. I was really impressed. I think it was his debut. And I said, he's got something. He's 19 years old, from Mali. And he's really mobile. Look at the size of him, but he's very mobile. He's really well coordinated. Obviously got a really good left foot. I mean, that touch actually gets away from him. And I always say to players, just get it out your feet. Doesn't matter if it's away from you. He gets it out his feet, and it's a terrific strike. And I was surprised, I think you mentioned it in commentary, Chris. I thought two of their best players had just come back onto the pitch, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was surprised he didn't start the game, but there must be a consistency issue or a health or injury issue going on.
Still only 19 as well.
I mean, what a great strike. I mean, it was a lovely threaded pass to his foot. It did get away from him slightly, but he was sharp enough to get on it. Zach Viner and a few of the lads just couldn't close the space down quick enough. He got the shot away and it whistled past.
Absolutely, it was so quick, wasn't it, in terms of you couldn't even really predict that was what was going to happen next.
And then we thought we were in for a real roller coaster.
Well, it's almost like you've read the run order, because that really did set up. I mean, that was just around sort of 80 minutes, wasn't it? They got their goal, so it's 2-1 at that point, 10 minutes to go, and I mean, I think any City fan would have been thinking, oh no.
Well, I'm up on comms and I left it over to Alex because I can hardly speak. Honestly, I'm taking big, deep breaths. It's really tough. Honestly, I'll say to any of the fans who are watching this, I'm a big fan. Maybe a former player, but I'm a big fan. And it's really tough to talk about your own team, and make any sense when you're under that much pressure.
Absolutely, but you know what? If you said that to me maybe a couple of months ago, I'd say, I wouldn't fancy him to when they concede that goal. But in the last...
They didn't wilt, did they?
The last couple of months, I think that it's not been a concern. Yeah, it's a poor goal, it's disappointing. Yeah. But when they've got their noses in front, all that inexperience that they've shown when they've got that panic, they created the better opportunities. As we saw here, they got into good areas. Now, what they need to do, is Chris fantastic feet, is put those chances away. Yeah. I think earlier on in the season they maybe dropped a little bit deeper, and they could have got even deeper towards the edge of the box, start kicking it and smashing it away. You know, Max is
ugly stuff, but we had a little bit more control, didn't we? And you know, as we're seeing on the screen now, exactly. I thought Mehmeti was great. He did what he was asked of him. He took the ball into the corners. We had Armstrong doing the same.
I think Mehmeti played a little bit angry. I think
he plays better when he's angry.
He's not happy. He's not on the pitch to start. He's our top goal scorer. When he's in that sort of mood, he's almost impossible to stop. You know, and Sam Bell, look, he does everything right, but the finish is so poor. It is so poor.
You can't say that.
No, it is. He does
you're a former striker, you can say it, but it was.
The ball stuck between his feet.
Just that first touch,
He's either got to take another touch to have a swing in it, or just.
And the angle's really tight as well. And to be fair, Earthy was in a better position for him to have a wider angle at goal. And it was quite funny. I was screaming at all three of them to shoot before it got to Bell. And Bell's in the worst position, and he has the shot, and I go, really? Come on. But listen, 3 great points.
Exactly.
Absolutely, but just, you know, having seen some of those clips, those were sort of in the last 5-10 minutes. And as you said, we felt like momentum, you know, might well be going over to Watford at that point. But based on the quality, there wasn't really a lot to show from Watford's point of view. That was all City.
There was nothing. I had to point that out to you at the end of the game. We were looking for clips to say, well, you know, after the goal, watch out. They didn't have any. And you know what? And although it feels like, what have we done? It's City again. It was never like that.
I was hid under my seat, so I can't remember.
It was City who should have gone and made it 3 or 4. And it was that sort of game, because you know what? Watford, you know, didn't have a lot to offer, and City controlled them for the most part.
Well, let's do something that City fans don't often get to enjoy at this point, and let's look at the table, because that win does, well, a world of good from a City point of view. I think it probably does signal the end of Watford's playoff hopes. If we look at it here, they've dropped down to 10th, 53 points. But let's focus on us. City up to 6th. You made a really good point earlier in the show about they're in there now and the pressure might tell. But 60 points, goal difference could be a factor, but you can see Middlesbrough up into 5th, having beaten Blackburn last night. And it's Coventry and West Brom who fall into 7 and 8. Sets up Tuesday night, but Chris, I mean, whether it's Tuesday night you want to reflect on, or just the fact that City are there as it stands, as it is.
It makes me feel very warm inside. It really does. It's great. 6 games to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're 6th.
Right in amongst
it. And it's all in our own hands. We've got several of the teams on that page to play. We've got Sunderland. We've got Preston at home, which has been our notorious bogey side, but... away from home, definitely, not so much at home. Sunderland, as Leroy was saying before we came on there, might already be in the playoffs by then, and might field a weakened team, or maybe some of their fringe players. So that might be an easier game for us, but it's all in our own hands, and that's all we can expect at this time of the year.
Absolutely.
Well, I think they will. I think the Sunderland game is quite a way away. There's 6 games left, 18 points. I think there's 15 points between them, and they only need one more win. And when you're going into the playoffs, knowing that they can't get in the top 2, they can't drop out of the top 6, they will come off it a bit. And so, and all these things are going to play. So when you're coming into those crunch games, and I always said, I think City are better against the teams that want to go and play against them. So
absolutely.
A lot to look forward to.
West Brom are going to be one of those. Tuesday night, 7:45. Chris, you were just saying, under the lights, and that can do funny things.
Yeah, hide behind your sofa time, isn't it? It really is. Yeah, it's brilliant. This is what, you know, as a fan, this is what you want. This is what you look forward to. At the end of the season, it is going to be the weather's been brilliant, so there's going to be a dewy ground. The ball's going to zip around. It's going to be under the lights. The fans will be here in their thousands. I expect another 5 on the attendance, because people now are beginning to believe.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the message. Leroy, final thoughts from you on today, on Tuesday, how this all looks?
Job done. Just getting the 3 points. I thought, there were pieces of the performance that were excellent, pieces that they could do better. Doesn't matter. Got the 3 points. As Chris said, it's the sun's out. It's going to be an evening game. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it. The big games, you know, at this time of the season, you know, in March. Do you want to be Preston, or do you want to be in the top 6? Well, you want to be in the top 6, and now you want to stay there. Yeah. And I think that's what me and Man have been saying. You've shown to everybody, because you know I've been watching everybody talking about the Championship for the last week. No one has been mentioning Bristol City.
Yeah.
They will be mentioning now, and the players have got to just say, well, we deserve that. Let's keep it. It's a great feeling for people to think you're that good and you can achieve something. Go and prove that you can.
Absolutely. Well, there's the message. I'm pumped. I'm
Yeah,
sure the
I'm
players will be.
I've got the sleeping bag under there.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, they come
Might have been in my head for 90 minutes. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
great.
It's a great position to be in.
Absolutely. Well, look, there you go. Big game on Tuesday. As I say, only a few days now between now and then against West Brom. 7:45 kickoff, which means we'll be here on Robins TV from 7:15. Of course, thank you to Leroy and Chris for your thoughts here today. It's been great. Really enjoyable occasion. Always is when they win.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we'll be back Tuesday night, 7:15 here on Robins TV. Looking forward to it. Bye-bye.